So what we'd like to do is, first off, thank the candidates for joining us this morning. This is not a debate, but just a forum and opportunity for them to introduce themselves, talk maybe perhaps a little bit about their platform, and then we'll open it up for questions from the audience. So I'm going to go down here, and I would ask if you just speak in the microphone and then pass it to your right. Norm, we'll start with you, if you don't mind.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm really grateful to be here. I love the chamber. We do have 3 of these, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Brandon and I. And I apologize for being a couple of minutes late. And congratulations. That's a huge change. We are going to all be sorry to see the chamber will be in great hands, and I think all of us that are members will work
Switch it out. That one's not working, apparently.
Is this not working?
You have to start over. No, I'm just kidding.
I am not starting over. I'm sorry. I actually wanted to see one of those old desks that wrap around. I wanted to see John get out of one of those old desks. I've sat in them recently, and they're not easy to get out of. I don't know what we did to our kids back then. So, I've been the state senator for 4 years. I've been the first selectman of Essex since 2011. And I've been on the Board of Selectmen since 2003, and prior to that I did Economic Development Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. Public service is my act too. I'm a member of the chamber because I own a company in the area that has, footprint in Essex and Clinton and Michigan. And happy to say that we're trying to do similar to the Lee Company, which is create a succession plan and have the next generation run that. Although I don't always agree with them, but I do love them. And this is my act too. This is my way to get back to the community that's done so much for me. I abhor things like being called a lifelong politician. None of that could be further from the truth. I don't like politics with a small p or a capital P. I like serving the public. To me, this is about serving the public. And it's really about, after all my years of doing this, listening to what people want and talking to people and engaging with them. I actually genuinely like people. I know some of my colleagues don't necessarily really like people. And as a result of that, I want to hear what other people have to say and then bring my best judgment to figure out a way to deliver the services that the majority of the people in my town, my state, the country, what they want, what they expect from government, and figuring out, using my business experience, the most efficient way to do that. That runs across the whole platform of issues that we deal with at the state level. And I think most people know I'm the chair of the Energy and Technology Committee, and I think we've worked on that committee in particular over 4 years to come up with really broad bipartisan solutions to doing our best to manage mitigating climate change, to managing reliability and managing cost to the extent that that's within our purview. We don't control the global energy markets, but we do our best to control the activities of the utilities in our state by empowering our regulatory authority, PURA. And I'm proud to say that the legislation that we passed, the Take Back Our Grid Act, which I think passed unanimously in both chambers and was signed by the governor, is now bearing the fruit that we had hoped it would bear by coming up with low income rates, by working to give the state more authority in how they evaluate the performance of the utilities, something called performance-based rate making, which there's an open docket on right now. And I have to tell you, everything that we've done is kind of first in the country. Along with that, we made great strides in adding renewable energy. We've done procurements for 2,000 megawatts of wind energy. The state of Connecticut is ideally situated, closest to the grounds, where the wind energy will be located. We've doubled the limits, or more than doubled the limits on solar and batteries. And we've actually created some equity in that, so not only people that own single-family homes can avail themselves of those programs. So that, along with being vice chair of the Planning and Development Committee, which brings my experience as a first selectman to bear. I was very instrumental in passing the law, as was Representative Gruppiel, in terms of housing, because we've been working on trying to figure out a way, without imposing our will at the state level on every municipality, how do we find a way to increase housing affordability? I've been given that hook. So with that, I'm very grateful to be here. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you. I didn't spit on this too much, Chris.
Thanks.
You can wipe it off.
That, now I got to wipe it off. First of all, thank you to the Chamber, obviously, for hosting this event. I think it's a good opportunity for candidates to come out and express ourselves and let you know where we're from and what we're doing, more so just our platform, because I think it is, at the end of the day, about a platform, but it's also about the individual that you are electing to go up there and serve this district. I'm Chris Anaskovich. I am from Clinton. Lived in Clinton since 2003. I have been involved in Clinton with youth athletics and youth sports since we moved into town. Once my son aged out, decided what else are we going to do, so I got involved in politics. Great idea. So I first served on Planning and Zoning Commission for 4 years. We changed our form of government in Clinton in 2019 to a town manager form of government, and at the time we elected a 7-member town council. I was elected to the council, was the highest vote getter, and subsequently became the chairman of the council, and have since maintained that position as the chairman of the council in Clinton. So this opportunity came up to kind of expand and to move on and to see if the state level position is something that I'd be interested in doing. And I took to it. I love the fact of what I do right now for the town of Clinton. I love serving as the town chair. I love being involved. I love seeing and hearing and listening to people about what they want. And I think that's a big part of it. When you're on the campaign trail, you listen to everybody and they have questions and concerns and comments. And basically our job, for me personally, is to listen what they have to say and take that and bring it to Hartford, bring it to a place where we might be able to get something done. As Norm said, I'm very non-political. My hashtag that I ran when I ran at town council was people, not politics. And it continues to be that to this day. In the town of Clinton, we've made sure that we want to work together as a community and make sure that what we're doing is in the best interest of the community, not the best interest of any personal agendas or party agendas. It is truly about the community. That's the most important thing. When you serve in politics, that you're serving the community as a whole. You're not serving your individual party or your individual agendas. That's going to get nowhere. So I'm very open to having conversations and sitting at a table, and I want to be part of the solution. We all know what goes on, and we've heard all the comments about Connecticut. Well, there is a way to make it better, but you can't make it better unless you want to get involved. So that's sort of me as a person, the platform that I'm running on. I'm sure everybody's heard them, over and over. Connecticut being affordable, housing is an issue. I think we need local control on housing. I think the government needs to kind of step away as it relates to that. I think we know best in our towns and our communities about what we need. Healthcare is an issue, senior housing, I can talk about that later. So those are things that are important. They're important to me, they're important to my family, and most importantly, they're important to our community. And that's who we serve, and that's who we should be serving as we're elected officials. So thank you again for the opportunity, and I look forward to any questions.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Devin Carney. I'm your state representative for half of Westbrook. Jim knows probably the story better than I do about why Westbrook was split up, but we're not going to get into that today. But I do represent the shoreline half of the town of Westbrook. And as many of you know, my family came to Westbrook back in the 1950s. George, Jim, the Halls, you all know my family pretty well. They were a standard here in Westbrook, and that's big reason why I eventually moved to Saybrook with my family, grew up there, and now live in Old Lyme. My district, by the way, is Lyme, Old Saybrook, and Westbrook. I've lived in 3 of the 4 towns I represent, so I kind of have a good feel for the district. Over the last 8 years, I've worked very hard for the district. Right now, I serve on the Finance Committee, which is extremely important to businesses, obviously, and to the future of our state in terms of cost, in terms of affordability, in terms of taxes. Within that committee, I'm the ranking member of the Transportation Bonding Subcommittee, and I also serve as the ranking member of the Transportation Committee, which is the highest ranked House Republican on that committee. Within that committee, I'm sure Rich can attest, I am one of the most bipartisan legislators in Hartford, so much so that a national organization called the Millennial Action Project for legislators under 45 gave me the Rising Star Award. Which they only give to 1 Republican and 1 Democrat nationally for bipartisanship. So I was pretty happy to get that last year. In terms of business legislation, one of the things that I was able to pass that affected Westbrook a great deal was reducing the sales tax on boats. It went from 6.99%, which was way higher than Rhode Island because Rhode Island's boat sales tax is 0, and we lowered it to 2.99%. Not only was that good for marinas, that was good for boat stores, boat parts stores, things like that, so we can ensure that our boaters stay in Connecticut and don't go to Rhode Island to register their boat and travel, shop, and things like that. Having them in Westbrook or Old Saybrook or Clinton does a great deal for all the local businesses. Going to things like tourism, as Jim said, one of the things I proposed is taking the occupancy tax, which is now 15%. I believe it, it is one of the highest in the nation. It may be the highest in the nation for a state occupancy tax. And either cutting it by 3% or dedicating 3% of that, or 3% to tourism. It is vital, as Jim said, that we spend money on tourism because that is the lifeblood of this area. Water's Edge, the Old Saybrook Point Inn, the various inns, the various shops. People there. We have many. About 6,500 people live in Westbrook. The population explodes in the summertime. In addition, some of the things that I was able to stop: a tax on accounting services, legal service, financial services, a new tax on groceries. These are all things that could have passed. On the Education Committee, I championed a bill regarding financial literacy for kids. As I see, Board of Ed Chair and Superintendent, this is something that's vital for our youth to understand the value of a dollar, to understand student loans, to understand opening a bank account, to understand what credit cards are. And I think we'll have a much better suited population going forward if that is a requirement in school. Talking to one of the things Senator Needleman said regarding cost and reliability of energy. And I think that's vital, especially now as energy costs are going to skyrocket as a result of inflation, as a result of various issues, not just outside of our state and outside of our country, but in our state and in our country. We gave authority to California to basically control certain emission standards for our state. I don't know if you've seen what California is like. The highest energy costs in the country, some of the highest gas prices in the country, and terrible reliability. We're a tiny state 3,000 miles away from them, and we don't need to follow their laws. We should be following our own laws. We're nothing like the state of California. In the community, I serve on the board of the Kate. I serve on the Rotary Club of Old Saybrook, which serves Westbrook. I'm the only person running who serves on the Old Saybrook Chamber of Commerce as a member. I've helped Vista keep Ninetown Transit when that was going to get eliminated by the Department of Transportation. It was amazing seeing all the folks from Vista come out to public hearings to fight against that closure, and we were able to successfully stop it. The Marine Trades Association and Water's Edge, I'm very involved with. And to Tony's point about seniors, I propose reducing taxes on individual retirement accounts. We reduce taxes on Social Security and pension income. If you make $75,000 or less as a single filer, $100,000 as joint, I think those numbers should be increased, but IRAs were not included in that factor, and as many of you know, a lot of folks roll 401ks into IRAs, so it made no sense not to include them. So I was happy to champion that legislation and happy to see that it passed last year as part of the budget. So All right, that's all I have to say. I could talk to you for a lot longer, but I appreciate all of you, and congratulations, Joanna.
Hi there, my name is Colin Heffernan, and I am running for state representative for the 23rd District in the Democratic Party. I grew up spending summers in Old Saybrook and moved here full-time in 2008 after graduating law school. And since that time, I have operated a law practice in Old Saybrook, also with an office in West Hartford. And pertinent to this crowd, specifically, as part of my job as an attorney, I've represented all kinds of businesses across the state. Everything from huge cannabis growers, legal cannabis growers, and to yoga studios and the local pizza shop. So I have had businesses come into my office with problems that need solutions, that can't wait and can't kick me down the road. And as part of my job as an attorney, and really my stock and trade, is listening to people's problems, identifying solutions, and then getting the people with the power to implement those solutions to do so. And I can't think of a better job description for a legislator. To sit down and to listen to people, hear what their issues are, work with them to develop a solution that I think will work and will solve the problems and will be feasible, and then go to the people that have the authority to make that solution happen and get them to. That's what we need from our legislators: listening, planning, and then action. One unique perspective that I have as a practicing attorney, especially a practicing attorney that does a fair amount of small business law, is I've been in the room with a small business when an insurance regulator is breathing down their necks and threatening to shut them down for a small violation of a technicality. I've been in the room with restaurateurs who have fought tooth and nail with legislature to change an antiquated tip credit system that relies upon signed scraps of paper when all the business is done on a point-of-service kiosk. I've been in the room where people are trying to figure out how they're going to meet their payroll needs and their tax needs and how they're going to regulate everything, navigate all the regulations that they have to. So that's a kind of perspective that I would bring to Hartford. I think that for the business community, businesses shouldn't feel like they have to go to Hartford and be viewed as some sort of adversary or some sort of enemy. Businesses should be viewed, and business owners should be viewed as people who want to employ members of the community, make a living, raise families, and be here. And that's a perspective that I'll bring to Hartford. If someone comes to my door, that's how I will view business concerns and business communities. And I'm sure that every business in here has dealt with some sort of regulation or some sort of code that doesn't make sense to them, that isn't comporting with what the reality of the business situation is, and that we need to streamline and change them. And I'll be open to that because I've experienced it, and I know what it means. As far as public service goes, since moving to Old Saybrook in 2008, I have served on the Zoning Commission. I currently chair the Aquifer Protection Agency and the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission. I was very happy to hear about the sidewalks moving forward. I remember we had to deal with getting inland wetlands approval for those in Old Saybrook, so I'm glad to hear that they're moving forward. My platform is largely, I view myself as socially liberal and unabashedly so, and I view myself as a fiscal moderate. I think that businesses are really the lifeblood of our community, and the lifeblood certainly of our small businesses and this community in particular. So we need to work with our partners in business to make sure that we have a tax code that is not based upon necessarily just cutting taxes as far as we can, although that would be nice for everyone, but to provide stability. And I think that's the most important thing. Businesses and people want to know that if they invest their money in a community, it's going to be a safe investment, it's going to be investment without surprises, it's going to be an investment in a stable community. I think our latest budget was able to do that. I'm very happy to see that it passed, a budget that manages to cut taxes and make huge payments towards our pension liabilities. I think that it will save Connecticut money in the long run, and I think that it will provide a sort of stable environment so that companies can come in and invest their money, and we can really grow that. So that is my my summary in a nutshell, especially with regard to the business community. And I thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Brandon Goff. I'm the Republican candidate for state senate. I am from East Hampton. I'm a East Hampton native. My background's a little bit shorter. At 17, I went right into the Navy. I went in subs, not on the Turtle, about 450 feet. Bigger than the Turtle, but nonetheless went in. Moved back to town in 2019. Bought a house, starting a family. I have been on the Brownsfield Redevelopment Agency in my town, and currently I'm a town councilman in my town. I'm still in the Navy as a reservist, and I work as an electronics technician for Northrop Grumman, which is why I was very excited to get the introduction of the 3D printing setup that this school has, because a big reason why I'm running is to push for more trades, more hands-on education. My schools didn't have that. I was building 3D houses with balsa wood, right? So I went into the Navy to get a trade. I knew school wasn't right for me right out of it, just like a lot of people. But here in Connecticut, that's a big push, is to go right to college. That's the only way. And it's just not true. And that's why we have, according to the CBIA, 113,000 open jobs in this state. It's because we don't have enough qualified people to fill the jobs. And the jobs that are opening are a lot of minimum wage jobs, which is not sustainable. Raising minimum wage is not the option to fixing the state. That just hurts businesses. So I'd like to expand the programs that we got. I know Connecticut recently passed for free community college. I think that money should have been put into schools to expand their trades programs, build trade schools, and grow it so we can rebuild our manufacturing department in this state. The other big reason why I'm running, of course, is taxes. And like you were talking about, can't just cut, but there does have to be some type of solution. I am glad that we are paying off pension debt, but the only reason why we're doing that is because of the last bipartisan budget that happened in this state in 2017 that forced the surplus to go to the pension debt. But the way we're at, there's going to be tolls. They couldn't get tolls before, so now they have a highway tax. We have a meal tax. They just raised diesel by 9 cents a gallon for tax. We're paying almost 50 cents a gallon. Everything revolves around diesel. And what's not being talked about is the huge shortage that's going to be coming up for diesel. Good luck calling an oil company right now and trying to get anything under $6 a gallon and getting it within a couple weeks. People are going to be struggling this winter, and that's not talked about enough. We need to be lowering all the things right now that'll just get people through the winter and then build back up the state. Connecticut is ranked 50th in overall effective tax rate, 48th in real estate tax, 47th in vehicle tax. We have the highest electricity rates in the continuous United States. And that's just the facts. Doesn't matter where you look that up. So no matter what's said being done is not being done right. And we were talking about helping out seniors. Seniors and people my age are almost facing the same thing, where there's almost no reason to stay. And there's no reason to stay because of what I was just talking about with the high taxes, the low job output. So we need to reform our low-income housing setting. Right now, you have to live in that house for 30 years to be able to sell it to make a profit. And that's wrong. It shouldn't be like that. The easiest way to build someone up is to have real estate. Not saying it should be 2 years, but it shouldn't be 30 years. And right now, with the state controlling how low-income housing or affordable housing, whichever way you want to call it, it's set, it only helps the people that are actually developing the properties. They go to a town says no to it. They go to the state, they build 2 houses that are affordable, and the rest are monstrosities with no setbacks, violating every rule of the town that the town didn't want. And that's wrong. And that's not helping anyone stay here. So I'm really here to just help the normal families like myself. I don't make a lot of money. And I'm trying to stay here, and I'm trying to build up, and I'm trying to create the dream that some people have been able to create 50 years ago. But what worked then does not work now. Now we need to go back to the hands-on training, back to building us up, and back to helping the individual families. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, candidates. Anyone have any questions? I'll walk this over. Yes, sir. And if we could just keep the responses to a couple minutes, if that's possible. Thank you.
So an issue that I haven't heard much and hasn't trickled down, I don't think, to the general public. I know the incumbents are aware of this. What are we going to do with solid waste? I mean, right now we're trucking it hundreds of miles at $6 diesel. That's not sustainable. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on how we proceed with solid waste disposal in Connecticut.
Anyone want to start? And we'll try to keep it to a couple minutes.
2 hours, did you say?
Maybe 2 minutes.
So my frustration, Essex was a regional collection site for Mira, and Westbrook and some of the surrounding towns still participate in bringing their garbage there. Mira is now basically defunct. I have been arguing for 4 years that we didn't really have a plan and that we were proposed a false narrative between Mira and Deep and Sasa Rooney, who came in to bid on revitalizing the Mira plant out of frustration after really not being able to move the needle. I pressed very, very hard to form a solid waste management working group. We've had subgroup meetings to figure out the best technology, how to value the energy, and what the next 20 years should look like, not short term. Deep has been working quite diligently with a lot of the municipalities on waste diversion, which is great. I think that we all should be mindful of reducing our waste footprint as individuals and businesses where we can, and a lot of companies are being driven by their customers, like I have been. But I think that we haven't had a comprehensive strategy since Mira was created. And what I hope is to come out with legislation at the end of this working group that creates a framework, because I don't think that we're going to have another Mira. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to what I would call a public option for trash, which is what Mira was. But Mira had all the problems that you would get from a public option. It sort of got fat, dumb, and happy with the money that it was making. It had a trash museum, which the kids loved, but I'm not sure it brought a lot of value to the towns. Long and the short is waste diversion, advanced recycling are all critical components of the waste future. Practically speaking, what do we do with what's left? You know, it'd be great to take all the food waste and do anaerobic digestion and generate gas, but what do we do with what do we have left? And do we burn it? Do we bury it? Do we ship it to the moon? Do we dump it out in the ocean? Those are the options, and I've been pushing that we create a structure where we can have another burn plant or 2 or 3 of them that are smaller. Short run, you're right, our towns are lucky that we're going up to Bristol. We're going out to the Covanta plant, and but other towns are having their waste hauled to Pennsylvania, which I think is a travesty. It is mostly going by rail, however, so which is better than trucking it.
Anyone else want to? 2 minutes?
Sure. Thank you, John, for the question. And this is something I've been talking about for several years, is trying to figure out what we're going to do with our solid waste. They have known, the governor and Commissioner Dykes have known about the trash to energy plant closure for some time now. And from what I can tell, they have failed in terms of coming up with a solution. And as Senator Needleman did say, they are being trucked or by rail, the garbage out to other states to be buried. I'm not an environmentalist, but I could tell you that sounds a heck of a lot more environmentally unfriendly than a trash to energy plant. And it is, and it costs more. And it's going to cost people as inflation, as taxes, and everything gets worse. People are now going to have to pay a higher price to throw their garbage out. At a time when people are getting squeezed, the legislature should have done something years ago. I brought this to their attention years ago. It's been in the news. Carl Fortuna brought it to them years ago, and the people in power at the highest level did nothing, and that is a shame. We should look at more anaerobic digestion. We should look at more composting, getting the food waste out. Food waste is harder to burn and it's heavier. We need to get folks educated on how to recycle better. See that black plastic over there? That may have a triangle on the back of it. That black plastic's not recyclable. You throw that in there, it can get in with other things and destroy the rest of those recyclable goods. Same with glass. Same with a dirty pizza box. And these are the types of things we have to educate the folks about. Because once that bin of recyclables gets intermingled with things that aren't, and it gets, glass everywhere, you know where that goes? It goes on that train to go get buried in that landfill in Pennsylvania. And those are the type of things we have to do. I think we're far too late on this. I think we should have, as a government, stood up to Mayor Bronin. He wanted to shut it down. He wants to shut down Brainerd Airport to help lobbyists. And we should be putting the folks in these small towns first to ensure that their garbage, just like everything else, doesn't go up in cost. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other responses? 2 minutes.
Yeah, the what to do with our solid waste is a huge problem, and it becomes a huge problem because every week we put our trash out, it goes away. Most people don't know this is an issue or don't particularly think about it. It's the easiest problem to keep compounding, and what that results is, I always view most big problems, and this is certainly one of them, that have a three-part component: a short-term, a medium term, and a long term. Right now, we have a short-term problem that needs to be addressed in a way that makes sense, because a short-term solution of trucking the garbage out of state is not going to work for any sort of medium term or long term. Eventually, Pennsylvania is going to stop wanting to take it, and then eventually China is going to stop wanting to take it, and we're going to have to deal with the issue. The medium and the long term come to, and I will agree with that, come to what we need to do in terms of education, in terms of how to get people to have that mindset that garbage isn't just something that you put out at the end of every week and it goes away and you never have to think about it again. The long-term solution also is going to come into how do we reduce packaging in general, and whose responsibility is it for packaging? There are companies out there that are making money off of the goods that they're selling that come in a lot of packaging. If you ever buy a product from Amazon or really anywhere, you'll see that it comes with a massive amount of packaging and extra products. And then the burden of what to do with those packaging, what to do with those products, and all that excess waste, that gets put on either the consumer and then eventually on the municipalities and the towns who have to deal with it and then have to figure out where their garbage is going to go. The person who doesn't have to deal with that is the ultimate manufacturer, who puts the packaging in a way that meets their standards of cost and effectiveness and loss prevention and that, ship that off, they don't have to worry about it, they've made their money on it, and then they walk away. So I think that the combination of both educating people as to what we can do with our waste and then looking to have some responsibility upstream for what we do with excess packaging is going to have to be a big part of the solution. Thank you.
Real quick. I am glad we're out of the mirror contract. I know I was very happy to do that in town once we were able to back out of it and everything and not get penalized. But just like what's been said, this is an oncoming issue. People saw it coming. No one did anything. We need more burn areas. We need to do better for recycling. Has to be more training for more waste. It's as simple as that. As long as we don't go so far to say you can't get rid of your waste. It's one of those things you have to do so much training where it just doesn't make sense. Kind of like there's not enough oil to go around, so keep your houses at 50 degrees to survive through the winter. There does have to be a hand-in-hand type of training. But yeah, realistically, that's it. We have to build up within the state, and there's no question. It's going to cost money, it's going to cost time, but it'll help us in the long run.
Thank you. Might as well complete the panel here.
All right, thank you. So I'll get away from the garbage part of it and talk about who this really affects. Because ultimately, at the end of this affects every taxpayer in town. We've dealt with this in Clinton for a very long time because we know it was going to be a problem. And so we were faced with this issue, and I did work with the town manager in Clinton to kind of figure out what we are going to do as a community, because that's the problem. You know, we knew it was going to change. We knew something was going to happen. But then how do we as a community fix the problem? Because it was going to be reliable on us to come up with a way for us to get rid of our garbage. So, you know, yes, this is the kind of thing that you bring up to Hartford, that you want to be involved in, that you want to have that conversation with people so that they know that we are fighting for them, because ultimately it falls back on the taxpayers. Because the more money it costs to get rid of our trash, taxes are going to go up, they're going to pay more money. And unfortunately, that's the bottom line. So this is a fight that needs to continue to happen, and a conversation that needs to continue to happen until it gets resolved and benefits everybody, not just the state, it needs to benefit everybody who's part of this process. And that was only a minute.
Thank you very much. You have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Hold on.
Home heating oil. It's kind of weird because you can't hear your voice here. But home heating oil. I'm on the Low Income Energy Advisory Board on the state level. And I was looking at the numbers the other day, and we're really facing the perfect storm here. Higher heating oil will affect everybody, obviously homeowners, businesses, inadequate federal funding. It's a real problem, and people are going to get hit hard, and it's going to come soon. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts. There's probably no magic wand that you can wave, obviously money, but it's a problem.
Thank you. Anyone want to go first?
Rich, thank you for the question, and this is something that's been weighing heavily on my mind this whole campaign season. I'll tell you a story. I was knocking on a door over in Old Saybrook, off Maple Avenue, little house. An old woman gets out of her car with 2 bags of groceries. She says, "I just spent $120 on that." She said, "I don't know how I'm going to be able to survive in the winter on a fixed income." Those are the types of conversations and stories that stick with you, and it's scary. And I think the legislature needs to do everything humanly possible to reduce costs or to prevent inflation and other factors from impacting the residents of Connecticut, particularly our most vulnerable and our seniors, especially when it comes to heating in the winter, which is a necessity. The legislature has passed taxes on the highway use tax, which will impact oil trucks and raise those costs. The legislature has added additional regulations, particularly in most recent environmentally friendly bills, that will add on to the delivery side of our Eversource bills. Everybody sees the actual use and then delivery, and the delivery is twice as much. Doesn't make any sense. But a lot of that has to do with the legislature. I was criticized a couple of years ago by a lot of groups, including Eversource, for supporting a contract with Millstone. Well, it's not saving a ton of money. It will at least save some money for ratepayers in the next year, because that's a local solution right there to solve a local problem. And the legislature needs to do everything it can to come up with solutions like that. How are we going to reduce it? And also, not raising taxes. I hear the state Senate president one more time propose a statewide property tax on folks in this room. It's just unbelievable and out of touch. And we need legislators who are going to stand up to people like him and fight for those who need heating, a basic necessity in the winter. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else want to answer that question?
2 minutes. Again, this comes down to another one of those issues where we have the short-term problem, and I agree with you. I've had the same experience knocking on doors with people wondering how they're going to fill their heating tanks and how they're going to stay warm. We need to turn over every rock we can find to get those people the help that they need. I know that we have worked very well with our counterparts in Washington to get increased funding for LIHEAP, and it needs to keep coming. We need to find that support to cure that short-term crunch that we're facing, because there's no doubt we are. In the long term, however, one of the reasons why we're having this fluctuating the $6 a gallon oil is because of external forces that result in, when you're using a commodity that is produced on the international market and sold on the international market and depend upon that for heating. That is an inherent exposure that you're putting yourself to in terms of those prices. When those swings happen, there's very little that the state of Connecticut can do to bring down that cost. So while we need to turn over every rock and shake out every couch cushion to help the people that need help with their heating, we also need to start thinking about the future. How do we remove ourselves from the addiction to oil that's being sold in the foreign market and subject to massive price fluctuations? Because if we're not finding the long-term solution, all we're doing is kicking the can down the road so that we get hit with another short-term crisis. And that is a key component of what we have to do to avoid this happening again and again and again. Thank you.
So, like, I already put this one out. Easiest way to start, and like Devin was talking about, is reducing the taxes that we have that are already hurting people immediately. And yeah, there's an issue that's outside of our hands, like you were talking about. And I really think that can start back from shutting down our pipelines and stuff in the country and making us dependent on other countries. And I know this is way outside of state district or anything like that, but that's really where it fails. It fails because we had an infrastructure bill that should have been split into making what we have safe and actually looking out at new programs. We talk about windmill projects and everything. That is a good thing to look at. Now we're hundreds of $millions upside down with no result. So we should have been building up more nuclear plants that have good results and growing it that way to lower costs and something that is reliable and proven. Keep what we have, grow to something else. not shut out the only thing that is working in hopes we find something else along the way.
Thank you. And do we have an announcement at the school at 9? I want to make sure we're 9:06. Okay. All right.
I guess you'll hear the same story from all the candidates because that's obviously what's what's the hot topic is. I think one of the main things that we can do as a state is look at the home energy assistance program that's available through the state that was unfunded this past year, and look into that and seeing if there's more ways for the state to give back to the community and give back to the people that are struggling the most, because that is an important part. So the funding for that was less than it was last year, and obviously since last year the home oil prices have skyrocketed. So one way that maybe we can help lighten the load, a lot of the external factors really that we don't have control over, there's not much we can do. But if there are things that we can control on our own in Hartford through funding and help and giving back and helping, that's one of the things that I think we should be looking at also.
I love talking about energy, but there's no way I can distill anything that was said here down to 2 minutes. But I am going to try to do a couple of things. One is I am the guy who passed the first bill to expand nuclear in the state of Connecticut in 40 years. We've had a moratorium on nuclear in the state of Connecticut in a very limited way, looking at the future, that they're building small modular reactors that are safer, more efficient. I expanded, the state expanded the ability to add reactors at the Millstone site, nowhere else. And most people who understand nuclear understand that the problem is getting rid of the nuclear waste. That's why we haven't built any new nuclear in this country in a long time. There was a lot of money invested in Yucca Mountain for all different reasons. Politically, states didn't want it to transit their states to get there. So Millstone sits with a pond of nuclear waste. Connecticut Yankee sits with a buried mound that's intense to go look at. But I think that Congressman Courtney has worked at the federal level to add money into the budget to figure out what to do with the nuclear waste. With regard to LIHEAP, which is the Low-Income Heating Assistance Program, we had what would normally be a non-contentious meeting, and we did not unfund it. There was money that the state puts in, and then last year there was ARPA money that was used. There was no ARPA money to put in this year, but the topic got to be very political and very contentious at what is not normally a contentious meeting around it being election season. I fully support going back and dealing with this after the election is over when all the crap stops. But remember, LIHEAP only helps a very narrow group of people. It's the lowest of the low income. We have the next group up, the working poor, the middle class families that are struggling, and I haven't yet figured out how you take a free market economy in energy that's global and help that next group. I hope we can figure something out, but I don't want it to be in the political arena. And Millstone deal, which I would have supported had I been there, some days it's in the money and provides a benefit to the ratepayers. Some days it's out of the money and it costs the ratepayers of the state of Connecticut money. We should have done it, mostly because Millstone's an economic driver and it produces 2,000 megawatts of carbon-free energy in the state of Connecticut. But trust me when I tell you, Connecticut doesn't get the benefit of that. The region gets the benefit of it, and when it's out of the money, Connecticut pays the price for it, which is the fundamental problem with the deregulated energy industry. Connecticut in 2000 or 1999, long time ago, deregulated utilities, and that was a tragic mistake for the state of Connecticut.
Thank you. I think we have time for just one more question, and we may get in 2 minutes. So maybe you can ask the question and then we can pause and then. Okay, all right.
How do you intend to strengthen the workforce for small businesses?
All right. Gentlemen, don't always get to go first, so maybe you'd like to go first. Start on this side.
Sure. Thank you. That's an excellent question. The ways that I see us doing it most efficiently, and I'll keep this brief so I don't get the bell ringing on me. The one thing we need to do is increase affordability in the state. Small businesses, it's not that small businesses aren't paying the workforce enough. It's that if you can't take a job that will allow you to meet your housing needs and your energy needs and your transportation needs, you're not going to take that job at that pay. It just wouldn't make economic sense to do so. We need to improve our overall affordability issue with housing, energy, and transportation in order so that we can see us really meet our maximum potential of getting people employed. The second part is proper training. I think that the training that we're doing here at Westbrook is excellent, and that's what we need to do. There are unfilled manufacturing jobs in this state that are good jobs. We build everything from nuclear submarines to attack helicopters and everything in between in Connecticut. When we do start to onshore businesses, and we start to do that because it's the right thing to do and because it will help protect against future inflation, that's going to help our small businesses.
It's the ultimate clock right there. You're done. That's it.
Borrow that. It's the Oscars playing the music off.
Oh. That is a good question, and that really does tie into really everything that I've been standing on and preaching is keeping people my age, our age, that are growing up, a reason to stay. Because right now, there's no reasons for businesses to stay. There's no reasons for young people growing up here to stay, because the jobs that are available just don't make enough to be able to be sustainable. I'm lucky. I have military training, different type, so I go in with the military and get a job that way. Not everyone can do it. And that's how I got my training. And I took advantage of the original free college program, the only free college program there should be. The rest should be building it up and working it on your own with your hands. And really, just to repeat everything we've all been kind of saying, reduce housing costs, reduce taxes, expand trade growth.
Thank you. Anyone else? Devin?
All right, thank you for the question. And I think it's certainly a vital issue for our region and our state. One of the things I see all the time are businesses like Electric Boat, like Millstone, like Pratt & Whitney, have tons of jobs available. These are jobs that are good paying. You can get these jobs by taking an apprenticeship. You can get these jobs by going to a training school or going to a tech school. And you can get these jobs with little or no student debt. And what I think we have to do better as a state is encouraging students to look into these particular jobs. Electrician, plumbing, manufacturing, any of those things, you can make a ton of money, live the American dream. And it's vital that we promote that. It's vital that kids see what you can do. I'm going to Shore Manufacturing later. They do a heck of a job. It's over in Saybrook. And they have people making good money quickly, and it's a reliable, good job. Certainly affordability plays a part in it. And I think a big thing for young people, like I just mentioned, is student loans. That is a federal problem that I think the federal government is failing on. I would have a much different perspective. I have student loans than what the federal government is doing by putting a Band-Aid on it. But we need to encourage kids not to get student loans. That's a way to improve affordability for young people in our state and our region. Getting the workforce back into these jobs has been difficult because of COVID. I spoke to Len DeBella. Many of you know him from Luigi's. He can't hire people. Nobody wants to work. They have gotten used to not working, and that is a travesty. In addition to that, a lot of our schools, not Westbrook, but a lot of our schools have seen a decline in reading skills and math skills directly as a result of the shutdown because of COVID. Now, I understand people had to take health precautions, but we cannot, as a state, allow children and teenagers to graduate high school with such limited skills that they should have learned and let them go out in the workforce, because that is a recipe for disaster.
Thank you. Any other responses?
So I think the big thing also is the fact that we do need to educate young kids to know that they can, there is another path. My son went to Vinyl Tech and graduated from Vinyl Tech. He went to the IST program, came out of there, went to a certificate program through American University, now works for a software company in New York. So it is available, and that he's coming out of that with a lot of education, a lot of knowledge about what he's doing, but not a big student loan debt that he's carrying with him. So the important thing is that if we allow these students to know that there's other places that they can go, because there are a lot of students that feel that the normal curriculum, the normal route is not something for them. So they need to be educated so that they understand that there is a different path that they may go down, and they can still be very successful in what they do. So I think the education on that part is also something that we have to look into.
Yeah. Thank you. Christina's given me the axe before I even got the mic. I will be done quickly. I sit here on this panel as the only employer, or certainly the largest employer, have dealt with every struggle that everybody is trying to talk about here. I wish there was a one-size-fits-all, and, you know, distilling complicated... Do we have to duck and cover? This is reminiscent of the 50s when I went to school. Duck and cover. Get under your desk. The bombs are coming. I am that old. However, complicated issue. I've been screaming at the top of my lungs as an employer, an owner of a manufacturing company, who, by the way, could use another ET, probably pays more than Grumman Northrop, that... Probably not, by the way. And frankly, the only path to that is not necessarily through the military. Anybody can go to school to become an electronics technician. Advanced manufacturing requires much higher skills. And this worker issue is going to result in way more automation and way fewer people packing boxes at the end of lines, and a higher requirement for skills. I would like to think that political slogans might impress people, but I'm telling you, on the ground, this has been a nightmare for 25 years, and we need to solve it. And I've worked hard to work on these problems, and will continue to do that if I'm reelected. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Dr. Martineau?
I just wanted to share, so the candidates can hear. You do not need to build new schools and new programs to make any of this a reality. Our small, local, regional schools have the ability, the desire, the passion, and the connections in our local communities to make this happen. So not only do we have the pre-K-12 robotics program here, but we're in early discussions with Electric Boat to create the first advanced manufacturing marine welding program here, and really taking our tech ed program to the next level. I haven't even told my board chair that yet. So there's a lot of exciting things happening in these small schools, in Westbrook, in Clinton, in Old Saybrook, in our Tri-Town area. But we need new schools to not be continuously built that siphon off funding from our local schools that we could be putting directly back into our programs. Just thinking of all the new programs that have been created, it's about $6,000 to $8,000 that our local schools get charged. That alone, I could have renovated 2 of my classrooms in tech ed to offer these programs in the next 12 months, but we'll delay it a little bit. So I just wanted to share that with you. There's a lot of exciting things going on in these small schools, and we're excited to share it with you. So please go on the tour.
Thank you. So I think we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank the candidates, obviously, for joining us this morning. I also want to give Joanna a quick second here.
I'm going to be very, very brief. First and foremost, thank you to all of you for your time, your dedication. I know it takes a lot for you to do what you're doing, and I very appreciate the fact that I've got a 24-year-old and a 21-year-old who want to stay in Connecticut, so they want to live, play right here. So thank you very much. Thank you to you guys for all your support in this. I have been under Larry's leadership for 30 years, so I've got the best mentor in the world, and I'm very fortunate and looking really, truly forward to just bringing on his legacy. In closing, I won't go through all of our events because we don't have time, but next division meeting is our Division After Dark. It's the first time we've done this. It's going to be on November 29th from 5 to 6 at the Coastline Brewing Company. This is where we're going to invite surrounding towns. It's more of a networking get-together, so I encourage you to all come out. Beyond that, take on the day, and we appreciate your support, and you know where to find us if you have any questions, concerns, or needs. Thank you, and thank you again.